Well, hello there, everyone. Thank you for joining me for our on-demand video discussing Dynamics GP 2018 R2 new features and functionality. Just some brief introductions. I am here proud to represent the team here at Interdyne Artists, where your vision is our mission. We are a Dynamics ERP service and solutions provider. Your partner of choice here, headquartered right in Charlotte, North Carolina, servicing businesses all over the United States and internationally. We are proud to be recognized as a national leader where we empower your organization. We service and support things like Business Central, Dynamics 365, Microsoft Dynamics Nav or Navision, certainly Dynamics GP, and all things surrounding the Power Platform. As I mentioned, we are headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina. Please feel free to reach out to us or visit our website, interdyneartists.com. My name is Sean Doorward. I'm a Microsoft MVP in the category of business applications. I'm the practice lead here at Interdyne Artists. You can find me on Twitter. I have about 20 years or so of ERP experience in the Microsoft channel. I'm also a GPUG All-Star, which I hold very near and dear to my heart. That is actually end user nominated and end user voted. So I'm quite proud of that accolade. I'm also a certified Excel expert. And you can find me all around the country speaking at business application events for things like Business Central, at Directions NA. Certainly a big fan of Power BI, and I do speak for the Power BI application at the World Tour, Dynamics GP and the GPUG user groups. I also speak at SQL Saturdays. And last but certainly not least, I'm a presenter at our annual customer event here at Interdyne Artists. We call it Vision. It's coming up in April. I have a slide here coming up with more information about that. Feel free to check out my podcast, mbspodcast.com, where my friends Belinda Allen and Mark Polino and I spend some time chatting about fun stuff. My gplifehacks.com, where you can find tips and tricks and things to save you time and energy. And lastly, our website again, interdyneartists.com. As I mentioned, our annual customer event coming up in April. It'll be held here right in Charlotte, North Carolina at the Ritz-Carlton. It's a 2-day conference full of about 40 sessions of content-packed and educational sessions. Going to be a great conference, 2 days focusing on customer engagement, Business Central, Navision, Dynamics GP, and all of the emerging technologies that are coming through the channel right now. You can get yourself a little discount on that. I say little, that's a pretty hefty discount considering how affordable our event is. It's at interdyneartists.com/vision. Today we're going to be talking about what's new in Dynamics GP 2018 R2. It was released not too long ago, and I wanted to put together some slides here and actually go through some of these things in GP to give you an idea of how these things might work for you and what the new features are. Focusing on 4 key areas here. Customer requests. Microsoft is very proud of how much they listen to their customers. I echo that. I think it's great how much the customer feedback is heard by Microsoft, and those features are integrated into the application. Optimization, we'll talk some of those features through, and purchasing usability. And lastly, financial enhancements, which all of this really covers everything from payroll, inventory, navigation lists, and general functionality. So for customer requests, we have about 5 things we'll talk about today. Some business analyzer functionality, some smart list favorites functionality. So let's get right to it. Right now, if previous to GP 2018 R2, the Business Analyzer tool was surfaced in the application by default. You had to turn it off individually by navigation list or by your home screen. Now, in the new rollout, under Administration, Setup, System, and System Preferences, you can uncheck those checkboxes there highlighted on the slide to turn off Business Analyzer. As we move into a more modern era and Power BI gains more traction, as it certainly should, businesses are leveraging that intelligent application more and more rather than Business Analyzer. So you can go ahead and turn that off if you are a Power BI customer. Also, if you try to run navigation lists and you get about 5 or 6 errors pop up, and that usually just has folks stop using navigation lists, this will get rid of those errors as well. Also, here, the password maximum length has been increased from 15 to 21 in GP 2018 R2. This is pretty helpful. You'll be able to integrate security a lot easier with that extended length. Password expiring notification. So now, if you have a password policy enforced on your system, the user will get a password will expire in 7 days notice. That is awesome. That'll save some admin work down the road. So check that out in the new version. You can also show your smart list favorites in navigation lists now. And I love this because I'm a fan of naming conventions, maybe using my initials over in my smart list to let others know and help me easily identify my own smart list. But now you can surface those favorites in your navigation lists. So if you're not familiar with navigation lists, they're pretty helpful. They're actually pretty cool. You can do a lot of bulk functionality with them, but they're available throughout the system. I'm opening Smart List so you can see that under my Smart List, I've got an account transaction list called Sean's Account Transactions. Now, maybe I would want to modify this and give it a name that has my initials. And so I'll do that real quick, and I'll just modify that. So maybe I have that little internal naming convention that all my favorites get my initial prefix there. That'll be helpful for something like this. So if I come into financial, you'll notice I have a smart list favorites here in my navigation pane. So I'm going to open up my smart list favorites. And now this is going to bring an entire list of all of the favorites available in my system. So you can see right away I've got several. Some are the out of the box and some are, and there's mine, the SMD one. I'm just going to create a filter where the option contains SMD, and I'm going to filter that out. So there's my list, and I can just go ahead and save this, and I'll call it Sean's Lists. How about that? And now anytime I want to see just my favorites, I can open up this navigation list and see them all. Right now in my environment, I just have the one, but if I had several, and likely you do, all I have to do is see them all on my list here and just double click, and this will take me to my favorite that I built. That's pretty cool. So be sure to check that out. And there's my favorite. You can also now, from the navigation lists, use the mass or the bulk functionality to inactivate and reactivate master records. So if you've got quite a few that you need to handle, maybe a certain class, or in this case, the example is account numbers, you can use the inactive feature right up there on the ribbon to process that. So let's jump back in the GP, and I'm just going to go into purchasing. We'll do this as an example, and we'll go to vendors. We'll let that navigation list load, and up in the ribbon, we now have the inactive options. So I'm just going to mark 1 or 2 of these, or 3, there we go, and I can click on Inactivate and process. I get a little ribbon here. Mine have failed, which is always fun. Let's take a look at this. It's actually pretty intuitive of the navigation list to keep track of it and give us that. So I have those 3 that I just happen to pick have reasons they couldn't be inactivated. So naturally that's not a good example, but you see how easy that was, not to mention how the navigation list itself can provide you the insight you need to know why something failed with that little status bar. So I'm just going to delete that, but you get an idea on how that functionality will work. Moving on to our next area, optimization. We're going to talk about workflow here, maybe some email functionality, some new sort functionality, and this is focused on sales. So we'll get talking about that. So you can now print your sales documents using functional currency. Now, previously, it was just the originating currency. The functional currency has been added. Notice this again is from the navigation list, and there's a good reason for that because we're doing tasks in bulk rather than clicking through the window and making the changes one by one. So now you can print your reports, or excuse me, print your sales documents in functional currency as well as originating. Brand new to the workflow suite. If you aren't familiar with the new features of workflow that started about GP 2013 R2, be sure to check out the brand new sales transaction workflow that was added in GP 2018 R2. You can also have this triggered on credit limit exceeded, and I absolutely love this. So imagine a scenario: somebody creates an order, in the sales transaction, the customer is over their credit limit. They put in the password or whatever other preventative measures you have in the system, but now you want to actually have an approval process, and that document could get emailed off to a credit manager for them to approve either from their email or by logging into GP. That's pretty cool. Probably one of my top 3 favorites in this release of new functionality, and I think you'll love it too. It's a nice addition to the workflow suite. There's a brand new smart list added for out-of-the-box functionality: deposit on unposted sales transactions. So sometimes we have a deposit against a transaction, but they haven't been posted yet. This new smart list will get you the information you need with drill down capability to go right to the transaction to make sure it gets posted. Also, you can now print and email sales documents at the same time. In previous versions, you would have to go back, maybe print your batch or print your stack of transactions and then go back and run the process using the send email. Now you can do them both at the same time. I'm using the displayed version option here from print sales documents. So you can also do this from a navigation list, which is pretty excellent if you ask me. New sort options for the sales item function. This is under sales, inquiry, and sales items. Now you can sort by document, item number, doc date, customer ID, doc number, and doc type. Item number is the default when you come into this window, but this is certainly a nice addition to help filter down that information and find what you're looking for a bit quicker. You can also email statements for customers directly from the customer maintenance window. I love this one too. It uses the blank form in your system, so if one doesn't exist, it'll create one for you. It sends default information to the customer, runs it, prints it as at the end of the month on the blank paper form, and all options will be marked. So that's nice if you're interacting with the customer record and you want to send off their statement quickly and easily. Now you can. Customer combiner and modifier. This would be just for combiner, but that is a function that has been available for a couple of years. It used to be part of the PSTL offering. It's now in the product where you can combine customers. You have 2 set up, but they're really one. Now the ship to address gets retained when you do that process. In versions prior, the ship to address actually gets lost. So that's a little bit of a new change for the combiner on the customer, and I like that. Moving on to purchasing. We're going to talk about things like purchase order changes, some visual cues, the AllinOne Viewer. So let's get started. First up is the ability to allow partial purchases of quantities that originated from requisition. So what happens is we have a requisition in this case for 70 of this RAM, and we get a hold of the vendor and they only have 35 in stock, and they're not going to stock it anymore. And now we're kind of stopped in this process. GP 2018 R2, now that's not the case. You come into the purchase order preview area and you can change the quantity to purchase. And what happens is when you change that, in my example, from 70 to 35, it is going to cancel the remaining quantity. So this is super. It saves several steps for those scenarios, and I absolutely love it. The AllinOne Viewer, which is under Purchasing, Inquiry, AllinOne Viewer. Now when you're looking at payments, you can see the documents that the payment was applied to. That's the vendor document number on the payments, whether it's a credit memo, etc. You can see that in there, and that is super helpful. That's going to help your inquiry turnaround time, and that's also going to give more information at the fingertips of your AP associates when they are handling vendor inquiries. Love it. Visual indicator in certain areas of the system. If a vendor is on hold, you also get a pop-up in some cases that says the vendor is on hold, but that's only good if you interact with it right then. If I were to come back to this transaction later, there's nothing really telling me that. So Microsoft and the good development team there has put a little visual indicator there, that stop sign saying, hey, this vendor is in fact on hold. You can also, this is another one of those top 3 favorites. Hopefully by the end of this video, I don't go over 3, but I really like this. An inactive checkbook is essentially useless to an end user, and now you can exclude them from lookups. So if it's real simple, if we go into a checkbook and the checkbook is inactive, then the checkbook no longer shows up in your, I'm going to inactivate this guy, no longer shows up in your checkbook lookup. So let's just go into purchasing batches, and we'll just create a quick one here. Now the trick here, or at least a little life hack for you, is that when you do this, what you want to do is go ahead and set it. Like by default, you see they have the inactive checkbox here, but I can click this and go exclude inactive checkbooks. Now it got rid of it from my lookup, but the next time I use it, it's going to go right back and show me that. So what I want to do is go to exclude inactive checkbooks and then set that as my default view. And now anytime I look up a checkbook, it's going to just hide those inactive checkbooks. If I need to see them, they're still there. So I could just click all. That's no problem. But I don't know why you'd want to see them, because they're inactive. That's pretty cool. I'll love that. That'll save you some frustration for sure. So be sure to make sure you set that as your default view in your lookup for checkbooks. Now, when you're emailing purchase orders, you do not have to use the blank form or the blank paper format. You can use the other form. So if you've got different versions of a PO, now under the email options, you can choose between your blank paper and other form to email that document off to your vendors. Pretty cool. You may have wondered this in years past, why you set up a default checkbook in the payable setup, but when you open up an area that requires a checkbook, it doesn't default. Well, now with GP 2018 R2, that is no longer the case. Anytime you interact with a checkbook required field, your default checkbook from your payables management setup is going to be populated in that checkbook ID field. So that'll save you some time. Love that. Moving into the financial area, you got several things to talk about here. Some of it's payroll related, even have a little web client one there, and I think you'll love these. So let's talk about them. You can exclude items from the historical inventory trial balance report, which is under inventory reports, activity, historical inventory trial balance. You have 2 options now in this report option. It's to include items with 0 quantity or include items with 0 value. So unchecking those can get rid of them. And just a side note, items with 0 quantity and 0 value that don't have any transaction history in the inventory detail table, they'll not be included on the report regardless. So those 2 options are for inventory items that have transactions. This will help speed up your HITB report, and if for nothing else, make it easier to reconcile inventory, which I know we're all looking for things that will help with that. Transaction level posting. Right now, your system is likely set up for batches that would post to the general ledger and then on through to the general ledger, meaning there's not a second step. But if you allow transaction level posting, those transactions automatically get thrown into a batch in your general ledger area. Now with the listed areas in the sales, purchasing, inventory, payroll, and project accounting module, you can post through to the general ledger from the transaction as well. Love this. This is super cool. I'm not entirely a big fan of transaction level posting, but if you use it, why increase your chance of having something additionally go wrong when the batch is sitting there waiting for you to be posted? So take advantage of this new feature here in the financial module. Recurring batches. If you've ever used recurring batches, then you're going to love this, because the system, what you have the ability to keep the transactions in the batch based on a frequency. So for monthly and bi-monthly frequencies, you now have a checkbox to say use the last day of the month. So as you move from January to February or February to March, it's automatically going to make your posting date the last day of the month. Saving you that step. It may seem like it's only one step, but it really is saving the risk of additional error, because we're going to post it on the wrong day otherwise. So this would essentially becomes your end of the month date for recurring posting for both the monthly and bi-monthly frequencies in your posting. Pretty cool. In the financial cards checkbook setup area, you have the ability to prevent duplicate check numbers, but there were areas in the system that didn't always manage that, and now they do. The bank transaction entry, miscellaneous checks, and the payroll manual check adjustment entry windows all now refer to that duplicate check number checkbox and inform the end user if that check number has already been used. Super cool. Help make your bank reconciliation a bit easier and take advantage of this new feature for checkbooks. And for those of you who love payroll, and I'm one of them, we all love payroll, especially every other Friday or whatever that magic day happens to be for you. But if you're a payroll associate using in GP, you're going to love this. Now the FICA totals on the payroll check register are actually going to show the totals. You're going to see the total there, combining the employee and the employee portions. This is on the check register. It is also included, I did check, when you rerun this using your audit trail. So this is a nice little addition for payroll folks. And speaking of payroll, if you've ever had the situation where you wanted to utilize calendar year maximums that combined deduction and a benefit, or more two benefits or two deductions, now there's the benefit deduction shared limit functionality. And essentially what you do is you create a group. Here in this light example, just group 1, and it's going to take the 401k and the CHD code and combine the calendar year max, or excuse me, I redesignate the calendar year max for this group, and I put those codes in there. Now, regardless of what their individual calendar year maximums will be, if the total of the two reach that calendar year max on the combined, those transactions will be halted and the warning will come through on your calculate. Love this. Check that out for sure. Speaking of getting paid, payroll codes now have start and end dates. So if you've always wondered the best approach on how to have pay codes that maybe don't get included in the build just yet, the only real way to do that up until now was to inactivate them. Now if you use start and end dates and the pay period time frame does not match your start date on the pay code, it does not get included. So inactivating it still works, but why go that extra step? Just use start and end dates. Pretty cool. Nice enhancement to an already robust payroll module. The web client, which I actually love quite a bit, now is integrated to the writing assistant for Word, so you can send bulk documents to your vendors or customers. It's available for customers, project accounting, payroll, and employees. Pretty much everywhere the Word letter writing assistant is available in the rich client, the thick client, the local install, whatever you prefer to call it. It is now available on the web client with GP 2018 R2. Last but most certainly not least, now with the brand new version of GP 2018 R2, we are included in the Intelligent Cloud Insights, which basically means that we're going to be have the option to leverage some of the functionality in Business Central. This process would take your GP data and roll it up into Business Central and make it available to you in the cloud. It's a one-way sync, but this is really good for the future of GP, really showing how Microsoft continues to invest in Dynamics GP and encourage users to think outside of the on-premises box and think more mobile first, cloud first. Love that Dynamics GP is getting the intelligent cloud insights functionality. I'll look forward to this growing in functionality and releases to come, and I'm sure you will as well. More on that and any of these new features and functionalities can be received from any of my team members. So feel free, if you have questions or you want to see more things in action, to give us a call. Earlier I mentioned about our user conference. Want a quick reminder about that. That is interdyneartist.com/vision for an early bird pricing discount. And as I mentioned, my three wonderful colleagues, Chelsea, Ashley, and Lisa, are all extremely welcoming of any questions you may have. And feel free to reach out to them via email or by phone. We want to thank you here at Interdyne Artists for taking the time to watch our on-demand video for Dynamics GP 2018 R2 new features and functionality. Have a great day.